Okay, let's do this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to episode 46 of Heresy Hammer. Today, myself and Robert are joined by a very special guest, Ash, who is blood and underscore and dot Ash on Instagram. If you'd like to go and give him a little follow, he is joining us today as a fellow no retreat entrant along with Rob. And that is going to form the bulk of what we're going to be talking about this evening. So Rob and Ash have just returned from Gibraltar, having attended the SN Battle Reports No Retreat Horus Heresy 5, so the 5th iteration of their No Retreat series for Heresy players. I'm going to spend some time delving into the event because it's kind of a big deal, this one, isn't it?
It is a big deal. It's a big deal in terms of the event itself, but also a big deal in terms of hemorrhaging money and your wallet. So I think that, I suppose, people watching this will be kind of like, well, is it worth the money? And me and Ash and you, John, are going to go through today and discuss whether we think it's worth the cash.
We sure are, gang. So before that point, we'd like to thank our sponsors who, along with all of you on the Patreon, watching on YouTube, subscribing, liking, commenting, giving us some love, giving us a kick in, make all this possible. So first things first is Curtin and Oakhampton Games, based in Devon, as you will know by now, running all sorts of events here and there. I think they're running another Heresy event alongside James from Apostate Terrain, our good friend James, later in the year. So if you fancy coming onto that, hit him up. If you're interested in any new plastic Mechanicum, existing plastic Solar Auxilia, or now ancient plastic Space Marines, then why not give them a shout? And they will look after you with good stocks, fast shipping, and competitive pricing. Speaking about cool, interesting stuff, always Dan at Gated 3D. He's been a long time supporter of ours. And let's be honest, kind of like the man when it comes to 3D printing in the UK. If you're after the top quality printing service at a reasonable rate and with some exclusive stuff, he works with a lot of the more established 3D sculptors. Some cases he will have exclusive stuff that's not available anywhere else. Then hit up Gated 3D. Ash, so for those of you who don't know, would you please take a second to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. So I'm fairly new to Heresy. Started 2.0, pulled me, my friend Max in, just previous 40k player. The way that game's what it's turned into now, I had no fun. I think I did 3 visits to Gibraltar for the 40k GTs, and it was more the social side than it was the gaming. Shooting an invite to get to another retreat for a Heresy event, just combine them both. It was the social side and the game side. It was so fun. And like with these pictures here that you can see, that blue and white scheme is what I applied with in October. I just shot an invite, and I know a few people get a bit apprehensive about applying because of the painting standard. And I will admit, I felt like I'd painted my army with crayons, seeing like the quality that was there. It made me feel terrible. So the moment I got home, stripped it all, and I got this white and red scheme. And this came through the people I met in like No Retreat, just asking them for advice, their colour schemes, what they did, and just took it on board.
But it's lovely to know. So you're a World Eaters play exclusively. Have you got anything else on the go, or?
I've got a bunch of Custodes models sat there, but
yes, now we're talking.
But Rob and I will get to them.
Yeah, Rob and I spent the last hour and a half talking about Custodes as part of the Patreon specials. So if you're interested in understanding more about a kind of a tactical deep dive on Custodes, Rob and I have just finished our 3-part series on the Talons, or the Custodes as part of the Talons.
I was like playing armies that are a bit disadvantaged.
Yeah.
So if I played Custodes, I'd use all the models no one used.
Well, there's going to be
bikes.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah. Bikes. Yeah. Okie doke. So, Rob, do you want to give us a bit of a rundown as to, because I think a lot of people will know about No Retreat because of the Heresy event, and also obviously the 40k event's been running for a long time. But why don't you tell us in a kind of more words than just an Instagram post, like what is No Retreat?
Yeah. So it is a exclusive 24-person Horus Heresy event. Now, the exclusivity, I think, comes in at 2 levels. The first one is that you need to apply and your army needs to be of a certain standard. Now, the standard in terms of painting, it needs to be of a good standard. You can't do like a 3-color minimum and expect to get in. You don't need to be the best painter in the world, although we did see some of the finest painters in the world at this event, but you don't need to be the best painter in the world to be accepted. But it does need to be of a reasonably good standard. I would say, John, most of the people that come to our events would easily be able to get a pass to get.
Oh, yeah, I would have thought so. Yeah. I think that says a lot about the standard of Heresy. I mean, so Ash and I were talking about this very thing when we met at the greetings from the Walk Weekend about back in beginning of April. It was beginning of April. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And it was a similar situation then. Like the standard of armies across the board now is so high.
Yes. So that is the first kind of level of exclusivity. The second level of exclusivity comes in that you need money to go. Like I will give you an exact breakdown in a bit of how much I spent, because I think that people probably just want to know the cold, hard facts of going to No Retreat. But you need in excess of £1,000 to spend on this event/holiday. We will talk, and Ash will be a really good person to talk about the ways in which you can save money if you're going like as a pair. Yeah, you need at least £1,000, if not more, to be able to go on this trip. And that's from me coming from Great Britain. If you're coming from Canada, which some people did, the States, like you need to spend a lot more money on this weekend event. So I think that's where the kind of like the 2 levels comes in. Now, it is hosted on a 5-star yacht. Don't call it a boat. It's not a boat. It's a yacht. So it is a top-notch venue. Like, it's a really nice venue. You know, it's not some shitty school hall. It is not some village hall.
We play in a lovely school hall.
We're playing. Yeah, no, you're right.
Lovely school hall, yeah.
It is in a 5-star kind of hotel with a bar there. The surroundings are really nice. You know, it looks really great.
What you're saying is it's not a scout hut where the roof is caving in, and
there are. I've put in brackets there narrative, but it is with tournament features. So the tournament features comes in because there are points for winning your games and for drawing your games, and 0 points for getting for a loss. There are tournament features of this, and we will talk about the champion of the event and how that person was able to achieve their championship status. But although there is a story driving the event, driving the lead up to the event, etc., the actual gaming itself and the first, second, third in terms of who wins overall, in terms of the person, there are tournament features. So that probably will be really important for people wanting to know that before they go in. There are a ton of painting awards, and we'll talk about the kind of those more in detail. But there are painting awards and there are best player awards. As I said, there's first, second, and third place, but it is a traitor versus loyalist. So the loyalists won, and they got some certificates, and each one of them got like a box of paints was probably worth about 30 to 50 quid from Army Painter. Like it was good, but there was that kind of like loyalist traitor kind of like thing going on. You were fighting over different tables, and that was a different sector of Folga, which is the planet we were fighting on. One thing I would say, and Ash can probably kind of develop on this point a little bit. I had gone with the view, and we'll talk about again this more about what you want to get out of it. I'd gone with the view that I was going to a gaming event. Actually, the social element of No Retreat and the whole kind of like event and vibe of the event is just as important as the gaming. Like, so if you're going for exclusively gaming, I think that you will probably miss out because the social element is just as important. So I met lots of people that I'd never met before. I've spoken to lots of people I'd never spoken to before, and that's because you've got to throw yourself into the social element. I mean, you know how antisocial I am, John. So yeah,
Oh my god!
for me
Just
to
getting his open his mouth to speak on these records is difficult.
for me to throw my throw yeah. So I just
Yeah.
think that you need to throw yourself in. And then the other thing I would say is that the event isn't just the event. There are weeks and weeks of lead up to the event and build up. Now, we spoke about this on the last show when we had Pardo. Then we'll talk about it a little bit more in detail. But actually, the event starts like 6 weeks before the actual event starts. There's a big investment in terms of your time, starting conversation with the side that you're on, and working together as a side to be able to kind of complete what you need to before the event begins. I think that's how I would like kind of best sum it up. And then we'll go into more detail as kind of like we progress. Is there anything that I've kind of missed off there, Ash? Is that what's your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty much as you said. The event lead ups are always interesting. I think you spoke about it with Stephen before, and like how the loyalist and traitor chats go. And it seems to be that the loyalist side attracts a certain organized player.
Yeah.
And the traitor side is just this mess. It's disorganized. And like I'm not the most
We always say that traitors have more fun, Ash. So I think that certainly rings
organized
true.
person, and I had to interject and be like, "Look, I'm taking charge. If you don't like it, I'll buy you a beer."
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so the ticket price, Rob. So
Right.
we're going to break this down into what do you get for your ticket money and what do you get for your overall holiday expenditure. So the ticket price, right? So
Yes.
it's 250 buff. So it's on the perceived expensive side of things for a weekend, right? I mean, to give you an idea, we tend to charge like between 50 and 70 pounds for our event tickets, depending on whether having food or not.
Yeah, spot on. So it comes in at £250. I'd go as far to say I can't think of any event in the world that is more expensive than that. However, you get
most expensive does not necessarily mean not good value.
No, and as you always say, and as I always parrot, like value is different to how much something costs. So £250. Now, what was great about this, and again we spoke about this before, is that you can pay in installments. So you don't have to pay it all up front. So if you want to pay in installments, that is an option. You can pay in 3 parts, which might be a good option if your budget is tight over the months leading up to it. Now, for that price, you get 5 games, incredible tables, great line of sight blocking, and 5 missions that you will not have played before. Like all 5 missions were a similar riff on objective-based missions or kill points, but they were all slightly different. They were riffed on what you've done, so they were all different. You'll get to play on a 5-star venue. You will get a 2 to 3 hour course with Amphiarus himself, Baz, the man, the myth, the legend. Now, to get him to do like a half-day course, probably in the UK would set you back like 70 or 80 quid just for like a half-day course.
We are charging for our weekend with Baz. We're charging what, £170?
£170. Yep, exactly.
And it's sold out. How quickly?
Literally seconds. Like it was seconds. It was gone.
That's so worth it. Yeah, it really is that.
Yeah. So he got us to sculpt chest kind of armor. But the great thing about that was that Baz was just around for the whole weekend. And you could ask him any questions you wanted to. He helped somebody rebuild their knight that completely got fucked on the way here, and he helped me kind of fix an Alfaris that are broken as well. Like Baz is just on hand, so you can ask him any questions. Having somebody with that level of knowledge and skill, just always able to ask questions, that's brilliant. There is an Argentinian barbecue on the Friday night, which is essentially all you can eat meat and bread. It'd be good to have a little bit of a salad, I think. It's just a FYI, Pardo. But basically, it's an all you can eat barbecue, and there are soft drinks and alcoholic drinks, and that's included with the price. If you were to pay for that, like it would cost you 30 or 40 pounds. Like if you just went to an all you can eat barbecue, that's 30, 40 quid already there. You get a Northern Defences tour, which is very unique because it's basically a very private kind of guided experience around the island. You can go for a gym session with a personal trainer for an hour. I mean, a personal trainer is going to set you back like 30 or 40 quid. So if you're into like the gym, perfect, right? You get a cable car tour up the rock. It was a little bit wet when we went, but it's still a cable car tour and it's still included within the price. For 250 quid, you got a lot of like event prep and very slick event organization. You know, a lot of their time is just prepping stuff, be it their news from the front stuff, organizing WhatsApp, organizing missions, etc., etc. Like there is a lot of effort and time that has been spent to get the event ready, and I think that it's important to kind of like recognize that that's included within the price. You get a whole load of swag, t-shirts, mug, box of goodies. It was like dice, dog tags, etc., etc. And then this is also, I think, really important. So within your ticket price, you also got money off the hotel, which I think was a significant amount from what I remember. It was like 20 or 30% off. And you got cheaper drinks and cheaper food as well. I think it was around 15% off. So if you stayed at the hotel, you were, and for like 4 nights, you were almost making your money back on the ticket price if you would just stay there separately. So I think for what you get, the ticket price is exceptional. Like it is exceptional. So much so
It did look good. It did look
that,
really, really
like
good.
they could probably charge a bit more, but I think the problem is I'm saying that as somebody who's experienced it. I think that £250 from the outside, you go, that's actually quite a lot. But when you kind of factor in everything that you get, and having experience, you go, this is actually a bargain. So much so, I can't imagine that they're making a profit on it. They're either breaking even or they're making a little bit of a loss on it, I suspect. But I think psychologically, it would be a tough sell to kind of go, oh, we'll make the tickets like 300. I think that the moment that it sort of gets into the 3 territory, I think psychologically it's just going to be a harder sell, except if you've already been on a note street before. So I think it sits at a comfortable place, but they could probably increase the price every year, like by 5 or 10 quid. And I think that, that would be fine.
In line with inflation.
In line with inflation, yeah, it's going down at the moment. But yeah, in fact, this is an inflation busting ticket, I reckon. I think that's it. Ash, is there anything that I've missed off of there that was like obvious? I tried to include everything there.
You've pretty much got the obvious parts down there. I'd like to add in, it's like the hobby networking element to it. I reckon that's what it feels like when you're there.
Yes.
You're meeting people you follow on Instagram for years. The knowledge and just the tips you're going to pick up alone. And even then, like if you're not this is 2 no retreats and I've made friends, genuine friends.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. That ticket price alone, meeting people you've followed on Instagram for years, getting the advice to elevate your own hobby, and just making connections.
That's worth it. Yeah, that's worth its weight in gold, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
It's like a consultancy fee, what they're charging. Is that what we're saying?
It really
that's it. Yeah, exactly. Cool. Yeah, so that's ticket price. I think both me and Ash would say it is exceptional. Like ticket price, exceptional. Really, really good value.
Right, I just jumped the gun a little bit then. But in terms of the gun, this is Rob's breakdown of how much he spent of his cold, hard, nose to the grindstone painting money for painting figures for money cash to go to No Retreat. Okay, so you ready for this?
Yes. So this is important because I think that for me, when the Merchant Princeton guys went to Malmo, what I wanted was a cold, hard fucking breakdown of the cash that was spent. Like that's the thing for me that was most important. So, and this is it. And I stayed there 4 nights. Okay, so ticket was 250, hotel including breakfast. Breakfast was excellent. Like you could, and I did often just have breakfast. I skipped lunch because the breakfast was big enough, and I could just eat dinner. So you can save some money that way. But for 4 nights at this 5-star hotel, it was £652, and that includes the discount. Now I stayed on my own. I didn't bring my partner with me, and I didn't stay with a friend in a twin room. But Ash did, so perhaps Ash can talk about that experience in a bit, and that will obviously keep costs down. But I stayed just me in a double bed. Now, I think £652 for 4 nights. It looks expensive. If I think some of the Wellingborough Premier Inns that we've stayed in, John, that has cost upwards of £100 per night.
Oh mate,
Like,
I was charged. They wanted to charge me £172 a night
yeah,
for greetings last month. In the end, I went to stay at the Travel Lodge for
yeah,
£34, but they wanted
exactly.
172 quid a night.
Exactly. And like, so actually, when you say it is a 5-star hotel, actually, it is quite reasonable. The problem is
Mm,
you're spending it in one go. That's the
yeah.
problem.
Mm.
The flight was around £250. Food and drink, I think, as I said, I skipped a couple of lunches. Not because I was conscious of money. I'm more that I'm just kind of eating less at the moment. Heather's got me on a bit of a diet, so I'm just trying to eat less at the moment. But you can definitely
I
like go out and go.
as an anecdote, I once offered to pay for dinner for Rob for putting me up for the night whilst I was at one of an event together, and yeah, I nearly bankrupted me.
Exactly, yes. This is why Heather is bankrupting us at the moment to pay for all my food. Um, so food and drink was around £150. The other thing to factor in there is that I don't drink alcohol. So some people's tabs will be much larger because they go out and they drink alcohol, cocktails. I mean, Las Iguanas was a popular place to go.
2 for 1
And
cocktails. You can't say
yeah,
no.
yeah, 2 for 1. So you are saving money there. But apparently, people told me that it was like £2 a pint at the bar. So yeah,
Whoa!
it's not gonna break the bank, but yeah, it's not something I needed to think about. I don't drink. And I think this is probably an under kind of like look thing. I bought new models for the event. It was a new event. I was like, oh, I'm gonna, get some stuff prepped. I bought a Leviathan, a new Saboteur, a couple of other units as well. And actually, altogether, that cost me £200. So I think that the other thing is if you're prepping stuff for the event, you need to think, yeah, okay, I'll get some use out of it afterwards. But I specifically built and painted models for this event. So I thought it was important to kind of show you that. I spent in total £1,502, which equates to £375.50 a night for 4 nights. So I think that the other thing you need to ask yourself is, am I getting, or rather, and this is such a personal thing because it depends on how much money you make, how much money have you got saved, how much money are you willing to spend on your holidays, etc. You need to say to yourself, okay, well, if I just use Rob's rough figures, is £375.50 a night good value for me to go on holiday / go to an event. And I think that's such a personal thing. But there are ways to save money on that, isn't there, Ashley? Do you want to talk about your experience about the way in which you did it?
Yeah, so I travelled with my friend Max, we got into the hobby with. He's black reading on Instagram.
Oh yeah,
Plus,
yeah.
me and him got into the hobby together. So we're flying together, sharing rooms. So we stayed a bit longer this time, did 5 nights, which was my fault because I had an exam the Monday morning and I'm an unorganized idiot. It's just my fault. But for 5 nights at the Sunborn, you're looking at about 830,
Yeah.
850, split between both of us, 425,
Yeah.
which for
Okay.
5 nights, breakfast included,
Yeah. That's
that's
reasonable, isn't
fine.
it? Yeah.
Felt all right.
Yeah.
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 So pretty
Yeah.
much your breakdown, same again. The models, the flights, pretty much the same part in your army.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I went with the Kane hybrid.
Yeah.
Bought it a while back for flying.
Yeah.
That's 280. That's on the
Yeah.
expensive side. I think you could do that for about 100.
That's actually a really good
And
point.
we're gonna come
Yeah.
on to that, I think, in a second actually as well. Is how
Yeah.
do you cart your models around the world?
Yeah, that's a really good point. But yeah, so that's another thing to factor in, which is you haven't got a transportation option. You will need to buy that for this
Mhm.
event. And yes, you'll use it afterwards, but you're buying that for this event. So I
I will
think the
say you don't
base.
have to
Sorry,
stay
go.
at the Sunborn though. You do not have to stay at the Sunborn.
No.
It's easy enough to say that where you're gaming, you can spend a minute, 30 seconds to walk to your room. That's
Yeah.
a big bonus.
Yeah.
But you
Yep.
can half the cost
Yeah.
just by getting an Airbnb or a cheap hotel.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. So next up,
Mm.
we have eating. So I did want to talk about this because I think that if you're going, I think it's probably really important to kind of be cognizant of when you're going to eat and kind of like what the options are. So I arrived on Thursday just before lunchtime. you will need lunch and you'll need dinner on both those days. That is not included within the event price. Like, again, you can skip a meal if you want to, or have an early dinner. But that, you already there, you spent 50 quid. Every meal, you're going to get a meal and drink, starter and main or whatever. It's going to cost you minimum 25 quid. So already you're racking up, costs in terms of food. On Friday, assuming you're staying at the Sunborn, you will get Friday morning kind of like breakfast included within that, but you will need Friday lunch that you'll need to pay for, because there's the Argentinian barbecue on the Friday evening. Saturday, you will need lunch and dinner. Now, dinner, I put an asterisk there. They essentially, the events team, take you out to a restaurant, but you have to pay for that. Pay for the food yourself on that one. That's not included within the ticket price. Now, the food is actually really, really decent. It's like a pizza and a bruschetta or whatever. I ordered. It's an Italian restaurant, and the food was really, really good. But again, it's another 50 quid on that day for food. And then on Sunday, you need lunch and dinner because food isn't included on that one. So yeah, so if you're going from Thursday to Monday, just be cognizant you'll need those for your you'll need those for your for those and Ash and Max, they stayed a little bit longer. You'll need to spend more money on food. Yeah, I think that's something else to consider as well. Cool. Right. So this is really interesting.
Yeah, this is a very interesting question to ask. Actually, I'm quite keen to hear your respective thoughts on this.
Yeah. So I what did I expect when I went? So before I went, I basically viewed it as a gaming event. And I think that's actually a mistake. I think that there are people who are there just for gaming. There are people who are there who are really just for the social side. They're just like, gaming is secondary to me. Like, it's not a priority at all.
I want a holiday and I want to hang out with some people and make some new friends. And if that means I have to play some games to pass some time, then I will.
You know what? That is exactly it. They're just like, I can really, I painted my army to the best standard that I can, but I know I'm not going to win best army award, right? It'd be nice to win something, but I know I'm not going to win it.
I think you're doing yourself a complete disservice if you're going there purely for the gaming element.
Yes.
And I know it's a geeky hobby and some people aren't going to want to put themselves out there and talk, but I think the group of people are there sort of like herd everyone together. So even if you don't feel confident, you're getting pulled in to the carnage that it is, and it's so much fun.
Yeah, I'm also going to say your internet is just so much better there, Ash. So that whatever you do, don't move. That is good. Yeah.
I was in my hobby room, and I only got the one message saying unstable, and I was like,
"Oh, it's gone again now." Well, there we go. But anyway, I bet
it's just garbage. I've come downstairs.
Yeah, it's much better now. It's much better. So, I think that was a mistake that I made actually. And because the social element is such a big part of it. So go in and say to yourself, yeah, sure, it's a gaming event, but actually, really, it's a both. Like, you're going to make new friends, you're going to meet new people, you're going to get some gaming along the way, but view it as both. And I think that you will make, exactly as Ash said, you are making a mistake if you're viewing it as simply a gaming event. If you're just into gaming and only in for gaming, basically, just go to a UK event. You'll spend a lot less money, and it'll probably be more convenient for you. So, yeah, I think that's definitely something that changed about 5 seconds that I was in Gibraltar. Like, my view on that completely changed. Cool. What's next? Yeah, so what to consider before applying. So Ash has already talked about his case. So he got the cane from a case, which is like a massive case. And I was amazed, Ash, that fits in fits in hand luggage. Like my mind was blank because I have one of those and it's absolutely humongous, but it does fit in hand luggage.
The exact measurements. So the only bit of trouble you'll get is what I get. You'll get stopped every time. You have to put it in the little slot. And it fits. Yeah. You can't get it back out, and then you've got 100 people staring at you.
So it does fit, and like in terms of the overhead, if it doesn't fit in the overhead, then they'll probably just put it in the cabin crew.
There were no issues. It goes in overhead completely fine. Yeah, no issues.
Interesting. You got to put it sideways, presumably.
It goes both ways. That's with EasyJet. It went both ways.
Interesting. Oh my gosh, right, amazing. So Lots of people took magnetized cases. I took a magnetized case, just make sure that they are super strong magnets. So, I put mine on the side, nothing broke at all. It was absolutely fine. But you can take like a KR case, I guess, with foam, and that will work just as well.
Yeah,
You just
I'd be tempted to take a bone case, I think, to a
yeah.
shoot, maybe as opposed to a magnet boy for this particular one.
Yeah, I have been stopped on the way to Gibraltar before when they've looked at it and gone, these golden Keshig look like they could hurt somebody. But I was not stopped once this time round. They were just like, yeah, fine. Just this looks totally normal.
Yeah,
come on through.
you poor loser. Just get on this plane.
Yeah,
Get out of our country.
exactly. So yeah, so that's definitely something to consider. A partner. So this is really interesting. There were a number of partners there, way more than I expected. And what had basically happened was, in order to sell kind of 4 or 5 days away to their loved ones, they had basically gone, well, we can turn it into a holiday as well, in order to justify the cost and in order to justify the time, which I thought was quite clever. And it seemed that people had a really good time with their partners out there, meeting new people, new couples, particularly like the partners just kind of like just stayed all together, really, or kind of like did things all together. But it was, I suppose, yeah, if you got your partner there, it's nice downtime for when you just need a bit of a break from everybody. I guess your partner was kind of Max, wasn't it? Really, that was who your partner was.
Yeah,
Ash,
as
while you were
everyone
out there.
says,
Yeah.
if Max is there, I'm there, and vice versa. We did try and arrange it. We did ask our partners. My partner responded to me like, "Why would you do this to me?" And I just thought, okay.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think on reflection, if I was to do it again, I probably would pitch it to Heather and say, "Oh, if you are interested." Number one, partly because it keeps costs down, but number two is that like Heather is absolutely fine just while I'm playing games, just absolutely fine to like do her own thing, right? There's plenty of stuff to do in Jib, on the boat, even if it's just like watching TV, like, just while you're on holiday, that's fine. Like there's a pool there, there's a gym there, there's bars there, loads of stuff to do if you're thinking about taking your partner. And then the other one, and I think that
Contentious topic.
yeah, so this is important, I think, because if you are, and so the best way I can describe this is this, that you need to be cognizant of this before you go in. Because if you go to a UK event and you pay £50 for a greetings from the warp ticket, and you spend £100 on a hotel, or £170 for a hotel for a Premier Inn, you can afford to have one bad game. You can afford to have a shitty game and just write it off and go, you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. Like, these things happen. Me and that person didn't mesh very well together. It was tense. I didn't behave in the way that I expect myself to behave, or I didn't expect my opponent to behave in the way that I expect them to behave. And if you're in the UK, you can just write it off. That's absolutely fine. The thing about going that far and spending that much money, you kind of in your head want, and it's not, you don't expect, but you do want every game to go well. And you want every game to be close, and you want every game to be not a cakewalk for your opponent or for you. And you expect a level of behavior that from all your opponents. And I think that you need to accept that you're bringing in people from all around the world. You're bringing in people with lots of different experience, and you're bringing in people who have lots of different meta and might play in a more casual, or at the other end, a more meticulous way than you. And it is more acute than, say, bringing people into Wellingborough, because usually, it's just geography, and it's usually people surrounding the Wellingborough or a little bit further area.
Yeah.
But the problem with this is you're bringing people from around the world, and there are more variables involved in that. So you need to go in and say to yourself, if I have a shit game, it can't ruin my whole experience of the holiday. I've got to compartmentalize it and go, you know what, it was just unlucky. Like, it just didn't work, this particular one. And I think it's really important that you say to yourself, sometimes it's just a fact of life that things just don't go the way I expect. And don't let that ruin your experience. And I think that's a really important mentality to go in, especially when you're paying this much money. You need to just say, it could happen. I'm just gonna, water off a duck's back and just accept it. I think that's a really important piece of just a really important piece of advice.
You
What
want
do you
everyone
think?
to go in with their eyes open, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think you just need to just be like, don't let it ruin your whole event if something just goes a bit pear-shaped in a game. That's really important. What, Ash, would you kind of echo that, or do you think I'm just making a big deal out of it and I don't need to be making a big deal out of it?
I don't know. It's down to the individual, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
because
can
Ash,
get
because
absolutely beat
just
up.
to say, Ash is definitely like a glass half full kind of guy, and I'm a glass half empty kind of guy. Ash is a much more positive kind of like person and has a vibe than me, so he might look at it in a different way. Sorry,
Yeah.
Ash, to interrupt.
Oh, don't worry about it. Like I had a gaming experience in my first game that some people could say is a bad game.
Mm.
I did get absolutely violated, but it is what it is. And if he
Yeah.
wanted to do that to me, he's more than welcome.
Yeah, so but that's important, right? Because your first game and it not going the way that you perhaps had not expected, it didn't affect your whole time there, did it?
No,
You were just like,
no.
well, what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
because of the interaction you have at the meals and
yeah.
throughout the events, I can just keep jabbing him in the ribs when he sat next to me, saying, "Why you do this? Why you do this to me?"
Yeah, and I think that Ash is be more like Ash is kind of what I would say
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. Be more Ash. Yeah.
Be more Ash, I think, is a way to to view it. Cool. Okay, John, is there anything you wanted to ask on that one? I don't know if
I
it,
mean, to be honest with you, not necessarily. I think has someone who has applied for no retreat before and been accepted and kind of unfortunately wasn't able to attend. I do think that um, it can feel like a little bit daunting
yeah,
because it's like it's a faraway land overseas,
yeah,
and there are I think especially like you and I maybe necessarily because we play in a few different metas, but if you are constantly just kind of going to the same events, you can
yeah,
get very comfortable in your own skin and in
yeah,
kind of what you're doing. And actually, I think it's often good to kind of step out of your comfort zone a little bit. It's the
yeah,
reason, it's the way that we all get to be like better painters or better gamers because you kind of think, I'm going to try something new and different that I've not tried before. And if it doesn't go well, then,
yeah,
never mind, I've given it a go. Whereas I think, there's often a tendency to think that, oh, well, if I don't try, then nothing can hurt me.
yeah, yeah,
So I do think that actually, yeah, I think that there's a lot to consider before you do apply, but at the same time, I don't think you should you should put those barriers up for yourself.
yeah. That's a good.
I definitely consider it a hobby goal. It's saying like, oh, if you wanted to go every year and incur these costs every year, if you can manage it, you can manage it. But like having that price breakdown, if you can't manage it next year, put it on the table for the year after.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good way to view it, Ash. Actually, yeah, yeah, that's a really good way to view it.
Well, I
Yeah,
just
because
had a nine
yeah.
hundred pound a year cut in national insurance, so that that's half of it
There you
paid
go,
for.
sorted.
Exactly right. Yeah, good. A very very good. Very good philosophy. Yeah, I like that.
So, what have you all to say about our very good friends, the SN team?
Yes. So they're
Bearing
just
in mind, we've done a lot with like Pardo,
yeah,
especially in the last
yeah,
kind of year or so. So we've got to know him kind of quite well. So
yeah. So they are fucking slick. Basically, like as an event team, like they are slick, they are hyper organized, they're exactly the way I like it. Like they are pretty, they are flexible when they need to be, but they are rigid on timings when they need to be. Like they have everything you'd expect from an event team. Like I never, ever, ever saw them uh I want to say flapped, but really, I never saw them
flustered.
stressed. Yeah, that's it. I never saw them flustered in any way. I never saw them stressed. Every single one of them was cool as a cucumber, and you feed off that energy, which is absolutely brilliant. I thought they were very, very professional. Not once I think did I hear them swear. I swear like a fucking Glaswegian docker, but not once. Just as an example, I never heard them while they were going around the tables. Everything was very, very professional. What I particularly like about Pardo, and this is probably for post event, but also during the event, Pardo when you're an event organizer, if something goes wrong and it's a bit awkward, sometimes it's obviously your responsibility to sort things out, but often you might feel a bit of trepidation, go, well, maybe I can just leave it and we can get by with a little bit of awkwardness and not deal with things head on because we're English and that's just tends to be the way that we deal with things.
Yeah.
Whereas what I like about Pardo is that he will deal with an issue head on because he's quite confrontation orientated, but really he's more like just direct and to the point. So
I think that's more of a continental way anyway, regardless of how. I think that's just generally we are. You're right. As Brits, we have a tendency to just avoid any kind of awkward social interaction. Sometimes to our own detriment. You know, you'd rather, oh, I feel embarrassed in front of this person, so I'm never going to speak to them ever again.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Whereas Pardo's just like, look, this is the way it is, or this is the call I'm making. You basically accept it or you don't. You know, just And I think that like I really appreciate that. He's straight down the line. It was interesting about the painting judges. So we'll talk about the painting awards in a bit, but basically they had a specific team to judge the painting that was outside of the remit of kind of like player voted awards. One person was Jose.
What a hero.
The other person was I want to say Benji, whoever runs Standfast Studios. Is it Benji? Am I right in saying that, Ash? Is it Benji?
Yeah, it's him, the one that paints all the SN armies.
Yeah, and then they had Baz as well. And they again, like having a highly experienced team judging the painting awards, I thought was really good because I thought that they were able to judge it on the merits of the painting and then could evaluate individual units for its own merits, right? Like you might not have the most amazingly painted army as a whole, but there might be a particular unit that you want to put forward for best painting, and then they would judge that. And I think they had they probably had to be super cutthroat about kind of like which ones were in and which ones were out. But I just thought it was an encapsulation of how professional the events team was, that they had gone out of their way to get 3 excellent painters to come and judge the painting awards. And I think that the event, you could not have asked more from an events team.
No.
Because Ash, you've been to a couple now, so what's your thoughts on the team just overall?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I'm unsure about DC walking around in these medium t-shirts, these too tight joggers. But other than that, the team's brilliant. Because at the end of the day, they don't have to do this.
Yeah.
And like especially with Pardo, his enthusiasm for the game, it shows.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant.
Agreed.
And like with the painting judges who he's brought in, they're fully accessible through the event. They're walking around, having a chat with them. They'll give you feedback. And whenever you're going to get that opportunity.
Yeah.
You are absolutely right. Like, Jose also brought his models with him, like, and you could have asked him stuff,
and you
right?
felt embarrassed, right?
Yeah, basically, right. Well, we might as well put all our toys in the bin now.
Just throw them straight into the sea.
And actually, I didn't take the most of speaking. I mean, I spoke to Baz a fair amount throughout the weekend, but actually I didn't make the most of speaking to Jose and Benji, to be honest, about kind of like what about painting techniques and things like that, and I should have done so. So learn from my mistake, but the
guys they're brilliant. I'd say I met them last year for the first time, and this event, I think I was in mid conversation just after a game, and I had them pull me. I was like, "Oh shit, what have I done wrong here?" And they just pulled me aside just to talk about the difference they've seen since October last year to now.
Yeah,
they were just like, we just want to shake your hand. This is this type of stuff we want to see in the hobby, and I was chuffed. It made my weekend.
That's cute. That's really nice. Yeah,
that's so really cute. Nice. This is the thing about Heresy, right? It's just lovely.
Yeah,
largely.
Yeah,
largely.
100%.
There's always outliers, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Cool. So that is the events team. Right. Let's talk about the build up. So now we're actually getting to the event itself.
Yeah, I'm going to need to duck out for a very short period because I can be of no help here whatsoever. So I will let you two wax lyrical for the next short while about how good the games were, what the build up was like, how they got you enthused about the event, and how they kept you enthused throughout it. And I shall join you again in a short while.
Sounds good.
No worries.
Right. So I don't know. There we go. Super. So, if you watch the video I did with Pardo, you guys will know that there was quite a lot of effort and work involved in the in the build up. So basically, essentially, what happened was we landed on Folga on this planet. in randomly. Well, it wasn't random. We chose them, right, Ash, didn't we? We chose
Yeah, I
places that we
think
chose.
it shows you the map beforehand. You don't know where any objectives are. It's just a blank map. It says, send me your coordinates by so and so time.
Yeah,
If you don't send the coordinates, you'll get a little bit of a punishment.
yeah,
But then you just get this randomized map of, that's what makes it fun.
yeah, yeah, 100%. So, and once you land, you then see where these kind of like these circles are on the map, and the circles represent the tables. And then over the, I think 9 to 10 kind of like stages, uh, of movement, you have to try and end up at one of these. And of course, because it's random, you're going to end up further away than you expect. But essentially, what you need to do is kind of end up at a table, at a
Yeah.
zone, along with a corresponding kind of like partner, and that will determine your first your first game. Now,
And
there
it
are
does give updates, doesn't it? Like, so
yeah,
through the
yeah,
week, you'll get extra things like being able to transport a team because you could have three loyalists in a corner with one objective. So
yeah.
someone needs moving.
Yeah, 100%. And you can do like you get a couple of double moves as well over the course of it,
Mm,
etc., etc. And then other wild and wacky things happen, like warp storms come along or something
mm,
appears, and and you can kind of swerve off course and go hit that warp gate if you want to and go to that warp gate, but it will take you away from the table. Now, the other thing that they did to incentivize people getting to these tables as soon as possible was that if you hit the circle first, you got to that area, that table first, you got first turn
mm.
without any seize the initiative. And then
Yeah.
what also could happen was that you were able to orbitally bombard people
Yep.
from the start. So every week you could bombard people. Now, I think the traitor team just took a dislike towards the Imperial Fist in particular. I know we did hit a couple of other people, but basically I think we just cycled between the Imperial Fist. But you might be thinking, oh, okay, well, what happens if I'm stationary because I've reached the table? Well, what happens is that what they do is that you might be out in the open, you might lose like 50 to 75 points, but once you're in a zone, you'll kind of lose 25 points or less because you essentially kind of like batten down the hatches. So if you're
Mm.
stationary, it
That's
won't
a,
affect you as
like
much.
the bombardments and the teams, you have to choose coordinates.
Yes.
So, like, a loyalist team could approach a circle
Yeah.
and understand they've got two moves before they have to go onto it. They
Yeah.
could just not move, and we could get our bombardment wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, that's a really good point, actually, because you can kind of outfox your opponents. Now, yeah. So that the whole kind of build up to it was really clever because it forced you kind of like to work together. I just thought it was good. It was good buy-in before the actual event. Now, a couple of things. Number one is that you got about 9 to 10 of these, and like these PDFs went on for like 3 or 4 pages. Like they were really in depth, and you can see here what happened. Like the roll of honor, the casualties list is just racking up the amount of points that you lost over time. And it was interesting because closer to the time, we got kind of like apothecaries were sent in and we were able to share 250 points between us, weren't we? And we kind of shared that out
Yeah.
and divvied it out. So everybody kind of got to the same level, which was around minus 100 or minus 75 points. So I mean, someone can take it all if you really want, but actually, it's probably better to share it out so people have more kind of interesting games. Um, but also it stacked up some of the buffs as well, so you could keep tally of some of the buffs you got if you decided to go to like a warp gate and it gave you like +1 initiative or something as a
Oh yeah.
warp. Yeah, it
I think with these buffs, just looking again, I can see loyalists got the majority. And these buffs, these warp gates you approach, you don't know if you're getting a negative or
no,
positive. So you
yeah,
got to take that risk. I think
yeah.
in October, I hit a warp gate and got a little 10-man militia horseman squad to
Oh,
use.
nice. That's
It
really
was
cool.
all yes.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Riders of the Apocalypse kind of thing. Okay, yeah, that's that. I like that a lot. What it was interesting though. So the traitors got a reputation for being quite disorganized, and it was quite unlucky. So basically, Anson was kind of our team captain for the first week, and what essentially happened was that Anson had Ofsted that same week. While all of this was going on, he was also hit with Ofsted, and if you're a teacher, you basically know like you have no life outside of those 4 days that Ofsted are in and the days before. And he basically we accidentally missed one. Um in terms of inputting it because Anson was just busy. And I think that, and basically Ash kind of after then kind of took up the mantle, didn't you, about submitting the kind of coordinates. But I do wonder in that kind of like extreme example, bereavement, Ofsted, etc., whether there can be just a little bit of leeway for people in case they miss it, and just be like, oh, it's okay, we'll let you, we'll extend your time, or you can give somebody kind of like
Well,
command of
we
it
heard
or
from the
whatever.
loyalist chat, didn't we? The loyalists had someone in charge. They had a vice captain. They had this layer of leadership that was
Oh
just,
my God, yeah.
ah,
I mean, I would say, so for me, I thought the traitors were absolutely fine. Like, but apparently like the loyalists here, they had like pie charts and spreadsheets and Excel documents, like total losers. Like,
how many
honestly.
last cannons can take out a brass scorpion? Which I felt that throughout the event.
Fucking hell. Yeah, so basically the traitors just played in a more narrative way, whereas the loyalists were just a bunch of whackers, weren't they?
Yep.
Cool. Right, so I think perfect. It's here. Excellent. So the games. We're gonna do this in two parts. So we're gonna do kind of like the games overall, then we're going to talk about the my games, and then we'll have a few highlights from Ash's games. Now we won't go through every game and not like a blow by blow, turn by turn. We'll just kind of just talk about them. But some of the overall things with the games, Ash. So there were 5 missions. There was one, and it was the first mission. First mission was a kill point mission. So really simple to start off the Friday evening, and it was an afternoon game. It wasn't a morning
Yeah,
game.
you're talking, was it like five
Yeah,
o'clock startish
yeah.
or something like
It was
that?
well, yeah, it was an evening game, wasn't it? Really, because you didn't have dinner until like 9 o'clock. I think that threw basically all the English people. They're like, "Why are we having dinner so late?" Totally not used to it. And then there were 3 objective-based missions. I think that was right, wasn't it? And then there was 1 area-based mission, or at least that was for me, because my last game was an objective-based one. But I don't know what your last game was with the jewel in the center. Ash, was that an objective-based mission as well?
Yeah, so it was 4 objectives, just spread across no man's land, middle of the board. It was Dawn of War deployment, and then the jewel in the middle.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, and then there was 1 area-based,
Yeah, I think the
based one, right?
area-based one was like your deployment zone in the middle of the board and their deployment zone. It'd be like score 1, no man's land,
Yeah.
score 2, their zone.
Yeah.
Which some lists broke that, but
Yeah.
it
It's it was interesting. But so I think that one of the things I would say, and I'll talk about this in a bit, is that I hadn't expected to be so heavily weighted towards scoring. And I think that if you need a fuck ton of scoring, like to compete or to want to, if you're kind of going there being like, I would like to try and win some of these games, you need way more scoring than you think. Or if you're taking less scoring, you need big blobs of scoring with apothecaries attached to them, because it is integral that they do not get shifted off of those objective markers. How many scoring did you take, Ash, out of curiosity?
I had 5 scoring units,
Okay,
and that was
yeah.
purely because I'm a Rite of War.
Okay.
Rampages as troops.
Okay.
If I didn't have that, I'd have been at a disadvantage.
Yeah, so one of my lists had 3 scoring and one of my lists had 4. I definitely think that 3 scoring list needed more, and that 4 scoring list, it needed big blobs of tacticals. I think I would have been much more secure and happier going into a mission. Every mission I played was nail biting because of the fact that I didn't have the heavy duty scoring that I needed. So it's also interesting. So it was the same last year. So they said they gave you 2 hours and 45 minutes to play. Now that doesn't seem like a lot for 3K, but really it's not 2 hours and 45 minutes. It was actually 2 hours and 45 minutes to get to your 4th turn, and then they would let you play the 4th turn out.
Yeah, there wasn't no hard dice put down. You're talking like, I think even on was it the first game on the Friday?
Yeah.
Everyone had finished. I'd walked over to Max's table. They played another hour nearly.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, when you see that 2 hours and 45 minutes, don't balk at that and be like, oh, I'll never be able to get a 3K done. Like, I got to basically all the end of my missions apart from the doubles game. We'll talk about that later. But basically they're giving you 2 hours 45 minutes to get to the 4th turn, and all the missions that we played, all the games we played, they were all 4th turn, and you didn't roll for any of them to go to a 5th or a 6th turn. It was just 4 turns and 4 turns only. So they were quite snappy games. So the in-game effects. Now, this is a good example. Or let's just go back one. So the in-game effects. Now, this is a good example. There is a TV screen, and basically, it went off. In general, twice a game. Now, there was a game where it was like 3 times, but it went off periodically twice in a game. And basically, like the first one, it was like dong, or like this sound that reverberated
like
around the
for about 3 minutes.
exactly, that's it.
Up front.
And then people were like really excited, and then they realized how mental these in-game effects were. Like some of them were absolutely bananas. Now, the first thing, so a couple of things on this, and I think that this will link to the games as well. Now, if you are somebody who just wants to write up a list and pit your generalship against someone else's generalship, this is probably not the event for you, because the in-game effects could have such a positive or negative effect on your army, depending on its makeup. It could really throw a game just from one of those things. So, for example, we had twice switch off interceptor. Now, if you were facing Timu's 2,000 points of deep strikers, you were fucked. Basically,
that would have been nasty.
And that happened to Jason. Basically, it was like, Timu's about to roll, and then the klaxon goes off. Interceptors on. Interceptors off. Rolls the dice. They're all on, and Jason has no answer to 2/3 of Timu's army kind of deep striking. So I think that in that scenario, they can be game breaking things that take place, and what they do is they kind of like give it a bit of a backstory, like that some psychic fugue has affected all the players on all the tables, etc. So they do kind of like back it up, and it's usually some kind of like cosplayer or DC with his Welsh accent. Kind of like
well, saying the klaxons are randomized, so I was in a situation when one went when it went off, it was like halfway through a game turn. So we just said, should we let this go on to count into the next turn?
Yeah.
If it was a bit feels bad, like if Timu wanted to step on Jason's throat and do that, or maybe just say, let's do it next turn.
Yeah. It was really interesting. So, and then one of them, and this is a good example, I think. So me and Tim were playing, and it was a nail biting game. And it was neck and neck all the way through. Like we were fighting for those victory points, and it was something like D3, Strength 8, AP3.
They're bane my life on things.
And then, but basically, we got back to the table, and we were just like, "Should we do this?" And then me and Tim were just like, nah, like the game is fine as it is. So I think that you can, if you want to, just be like with your opponent, just be like, should we just ignore? And we just totally did. So I think Pardo would give me slap wrists there, but our game was so nail biting that it didn't need any more excitement.
I've played Tim before. I'd have been like, Tim, you're tasting this.
Take it. And then the other one is actually what I didn't mention before was that 2 of the games I played, but it might have been different for you, Ash, because you weren't on the doubles. 2 of the games I played, there was random rolling that determined, number one, either how many victory points an objective was at the end of each turn, but then in the doubles game, there was rolling, and if you rolled a dice, it could mean that the objective disappeared. Now,
that was in the Zone Mortalis rules as well. I know that.
Yeah, so I basically hate missions like that. Like, I cannot stand them because they're too random for me to kind of go, I'm pitting my generalship against this person, because that, I mean, as a gamer, I think everybody knows that's the kind of thing that, like, that's why with the Tim game, I was like, oh no, let's not do the opposite bombardment, because I'm enjoying just playing, playing the mission that we're playing. But I think that, again, in that scenario, 2 of the missions I played, and if you're playing ZM, it's clearly that there's the case as well. There is quite a lot of randomization involved in that. So if you're somebody who's, again, just wants to pit your skill, your generalship against somebody else, this might the event might make you a little bit frustrated because things might not go your way. If it's going your way and you're lucky, then it's all fine. But I think that things can, what you hope is that it balances out in the end. But definitely in my experience, it did not balance out. I was super unlucky with lots of those rolls.
Yeah.
And it probably affected the outcomes of the game. Have you got any thoughts on that?
I
You're
was gonna say,
fine when
I
it comes to like
tasted.
randomized stuff. Randomized
Yeah,
stuff.
I tasted the rough end of the stick every time. Those orbital
Yeah.
bombardments are picking up 10-man rampage units. I'm a poor world eater player. I can't afford artifice or armor, so I'm just
Yeah.
literally the unit's gone. It
Yeah.
happens, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and that's probably the best philosophy and way to go in with it. You can
Yeah.
see why we brought Ash on, right? Because he's the way you should approach this event, I think.
Now, if this was a competitive event and it was sold that way, and that template landed on me,
You'd be
man,
fucked off, right?
I'd
Yeah,
be fucked up.
100%. Infiltrate and scout was really heavily nerfed. So in the second game, infiltrate and you could not infiltrate and scout into within 9 inches of all the objectives. Well,
Hmm.
that's fucking massive. Even like scout nerfing it that way. And then infiltrate on the fourth game, you could only gain one. You could infiltrate and you could scout, but you could only gain one VP to up to a max in terms of the entire army. So if you had 5 infiltrators on 5 different objectives, you could only get one in the first turn. So I think that's another thing. If you're a Raven Guard player and Alpha Legion player in particular, going in thinking, aha, objectives is perfect for me, actually they heavily nerfed that. So that's definitely something to bear in mind if you're a Raven Guard player. If your whole thing, which is basically their Legion rule, is infiltrating on most of their units, that's something to really consider when you're list building, because I can guarantee Pardo will keep that, because what he doesn't want is people running away with it at the start of the event. So definitely
Yeah.
Alpha Legion and Raven Guard, think about that before you apply, or think about that at least when you're list building, because that's going to be integral. As I said, take a ton of storing and then bombing opponents. So did you end up playing the ZM or not? Did you not play?
No, I played it in October, and I
Got it.
opted out of it this time round because I
Got it.
wanted the full 5 games of 3K.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
only difference. And in October in ZM, I got beat up. It was World Eaters versus Custodies, and it's the
Oh,
worst ZM
yeah.
matchup you could experience.
Yeah, the custody is just a supreme in ZM, because there's no
Oh
Overwatch or
yeah,
anything like that. So yeah. Okay, cool. So basically, the way it worked is that there was a ZM table that ran throughout the event. Not for the first game and not for the last game, but for the 3 middle games. And basically, whoever controlled the ZM board at the end, whoever won, they could place a orbital bombardment on a player. It wasn't like on a particular unit. It was on a player. And then that player was hit with these things. So -1 leadership army wide. That is fucking huge if there's night fight. Like that is loco. Half movement first turn, like that will affect some armies massively, especially if you're reliant on heavy. And then you remove an entire unit. It's not even a roll, it's just that you remove an entire unit. So in principle, that sounds great if it's not happening to you. Like, you're kind of like,
yeah.
you fucking wanker. You got hit by it. And you could see the look on Phil's face when he was like, holy fucking shit, this is
It
actually
does impact the
mental.
game. Like I wasn't on the receiving end of it this event.
Yeah.
Last event with my 120 plus model Berserker assault list, when this got done to me,
Yeah.
I was like, why me?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that number one, you've got to take it in the spirit that it's intended. Like, there's no
Oh yeah.
point getting salty about it just because there's just no point. You just like, fine. Number one, because people will fucking rinse you if you get salty about it. They'll just be like, oh, this cunt can't take a fucking joke, can they? Look at
Yeah.
this. Look at this guy.
And it's the punishment for Tekken. If you rock up with a lethal list, when these bombing
Yeah.
opportunities are coming up,
Yeah.
they're getting pointed at you.
Yeah, 100%. So it was funny because Scott was like, because I'd got hit quite a lot in the pre-stage, and then I got hit by this awesome bombardment. And I was just like, what the fuck have I done to these people? But I think that the only caveat I would say to the bombing, and the only thing I would say to probably the team, is that don't bomb people who have just lost the game. Like, number one, because I think it's probably quite demoralizing. They're just like, okay, so I've just lost my last game. And so I've just been hammered in a game, and now I'm going to be hammered by a bombardment. And like the -1 army wide leadership, it wasn't even for the first turn, it was for like the whole game. And I just
Yeah.
think that any negs you put on a player probably needs to be a player that is comfortably winning all of their games. And then it won't be quite so bitter. I couldn't understand
I
really
like
the
the
logic.
element of it as well because, like, in October we got the opportunity. We were
Mm.
like, Joe's taking it. Don't even care who he's playing. Joe's taking this, and it happened to him multiple times.
Like the last event that you did.
Yeah, so that was
Yeah, okay.
October. So
Okay, okay.
there was the ZM wins. We were just like, you best try your hardest in the ZM game so we can bomb Joe. It wasn't for the narrative.
Oh, poor Joe, poor Joe. So Phil got hit and I got hit, and I think that in terms of army strength, I think that's probably right. But I just think that I think they just need to balance that just by being like, I think I couldn't make much sense of it, kind of going, I've just been beaten double the amount of victory points playing Joe. And then Joe, I think, was quite keen to then bomb me in the next game. I was kind of like, I couldn't quite work out the logic. You want to hit
Uh,
somebody who's like, who's I guess who is winning their games, right? Because you want to try and neutralize some of their their
yeah, I
wins.
don't know if it should be randomized, possibly,
That's the way to do it. Yeah, that's
just
definitely the way to do it. It
so
would have been
people
me.
are
It would
hitting.
have been me though. Like I can guarantee
Still.
it would have been me. Cool, cool, cool. So yeah, so those are kind of just the games overall, and then we'll talk about individual games. So I played Matt first up. So I've just chosen three just kind of like standout games for me. I played Matt first of all. Really, really lovely guy. If you get an opportunity to play him in his Imperial Fist, you will have a great time. Um, so Matt took a Hammerfall list, and when I read the list, I was like, "Oh, I've got a lot of anti-tank through Grav. This isn't going to be such a great matchup because he's got basically a lot of infantry."
Mm.
It was amazing. Like Matt, by the end of the second turn, had 4 models on the board, and those models were a Castellan and 3 Iliastus. Like he'd failed his deep strike on turn 2, and at no point did he get salty about it. Like at no point was he like, this, he never got frustrated. He was always super upbeat, especially for like the first game, and I gave him an absolute pounding in those first 2 turns. And then klaxon
There it
went
goes.
off. There is no interceptor. Matt rolls it. His
Mm.
massive deep strike element came on, and that just completely flipped the tables. Like I think I must have been maybe 9 points up, 9 VPs up at that point. I think it was like 9-0. It was kill points. And then Matt deep struck in my back lines. He even got disordered. Didn't matter so much because he
Mm.
kind of like conquered back to where he needed to be. And then his Templar brethren, his Praetor Herald and Huskarls just wrecked face.
Yeah,
Like, and
I got to taste that playing against
yeah,
Matt as well.
and I think that having no interceptor
Well,
was
shed a pin.
yeah, having no interceptor was a big deal. I think that I could have probably got rid of a squad at the very least.
Mm.
But what happened then, he kind of absolutely nuked my back lines. And then the game, he was then 10, it was then 10-9 to him. And then I was really struggling to find ways to be able to get a couple of extra VPs to be over him. And there was no way with what I had available that I could kind of like take the back line. And really it came down to a charged dice roll at the end that meant I was only 1 VP up at the end of the game. It
Mm,
was it was
that's
it
a
was
good
like
game.
it was
Mm.
12-11, honestly. And like for somebody who I had punched around for 2 turns, Matt never ever ever got salty and fucking like hammered the shit out of me in the end. I was like, I'm gonna fucking lose this. There's no way I can come back from this. But yeah, just managed to get off a charge. I was super lucky with the charge range.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
say a credit to Matt. He sent his
yeah.
Huskar unit into my Leviathan, and I think in Overwatch, I killed like 2 or 3 of them coming in somehow. He just
So
rolled so many
savage.
ones, so many
Oh.
ones, and I was like, yeah, that's what Huskar players get.
Yeah, too right. Yeah, too right. So I think my second game was against Tim. It was the game that we kind of just sacked off the Alberton bombardment because it
One of
was
my
just so
most
close.
favorite people I've ever met at Nova
Yeah.
Retreat is Tim.
So
This is
Tim
so good.
Tim's Canadian. He's
Yes,
from
came
Canada,
over from
right?
Canada. Like It's been in the UK for like a month. He came
Yeah.
over for the Heresy weekender.
Yeah, it's just not gone back, right? So yeah, so
No.
he's just been kind of going from an event to event, kind of as a drifter. But basically, so Tim was a really, really lovely bloke, really thoughtful bloke, and really a really talented painter. Like his freehand on his white scars is incredible. And he's it's Timmins, so it'd be worth following him if you don't already. The thing about this list, and as you can tell, like I had quite a fast moving list, either through infiltrate or whatever, or through the bikes, speeders, and Tim had an incredibly fast moving list because it's Chagorian Brotherhood. So it was one of the most dynamic games that I've ever played. Like things were just zipping around the board and moving so quickly. Tim got first turn, and I think that that played a big played into his hands really.
Oh,
But
did you get
again,
to experience the plasma death that he
oh
inflicts on
yeah.
you?
I was, I think, super lucky. So lots of my units kind of have shrouded 5 up, but that unit, that's kind of like 6 or 7 man squad of plasma bikes are
Yeah.
really, really lethal. And Tim knows the list really well. But again, it was one of those where it's the opposite of Matt, where I was down however many victory points and then just managed to claw it back slowly, slowly at the end. But it was an absolute nail biting game, and yeah, he's a really chilled player, but he knows the list like the back of his hand. Like it's yeah, he's absolutely brilliant opponent if you get to play him. And then I
Oh,
played
yes,
Lee.
Tim beats you and teaches you new things as it's
Yeah,
going on. It's
I'd
so
agree.
good.
I'd agree with that. Like every game, I imagine you play with Tim is just a learning experience, isn't it? Like, yeah,
Hmm.
really, really, really great to play him. And then I played Levi. So Levi was really unlucky. So his flight was basically delayed by 2 days because of storms in the US. So if that had been me, I think I just would have been like, "Ah, fuck it, I'm not going to go." Like like he had real commitment to getting here. So he had kind of like half an event. Arrived on the Saturday for the second game.
Yeah.
Um, I played him,
Ah.
I think, first game on Sunday. And he was playing salamanders. You've probably seen these salamanders, like they're really vibrant, high
Mhm.
contrast. They really make pack a punch on the table. Levi, interestingly, so he did what lots of people didn't do. So he had rather than one massive Death Star squad, he'd split his eggs. So he had like a small command squad with Vulcan, a squad in of the Fire Drakes in a Land Raider, and then a squad with a champion of Terminators with a champion in a Land
Mhm.
Raider as well. So he had multiple quite scary threats on the table that needed to be dealt with. And it was just a matter of kind of like dealing with them. Now, it was really interesting, and this is a really good example, I think, of it was a really good example of where, again, the missions were really thought out really, really well, and where it was nail biting. And basically, it was a stone cold draw at the end of the game. We
You
drew that
played
mission.
Did you play the Warp Bridge mission with that one?
That's right. Yeah. So that's a really
Mm.
good point. So there was the best thing about that game was that there was almost like a secondary board, which was a bridge that was probably 1 foot by 3 foot across. And before you started your game, you could put units on that bridge in order to control it, and whoever kind of had the most amount of units or controlled that bridge at the end of the game, they got D3 victory points. And you could choose if you wanted to put units on there or you could not, but it was completely blind. Like you were not allowed to show your opponent how much you were putting on. So you could put on like half your army, but you're losing half your army for the main for the main
Yeah.
game. Um, and I basically Levi went first, put 2 javelins on, and then I went second, and I didn't put anything on at all. And I was just like, number one, I hope he rolls well. Oh, sorry, I hope he doesn't roll well. And it just meant that I had my entire force to play with on the actual board. Yeah, it was a really great game. And then actually, it came down to a dice roll. So basically, what would happen is because it came down to that D3 in terms of the warp bridge. If Levi had rolled a 1 or a 2, he would have lost. If he rolled a 2 or a 3, he would have got 1 VP and it would have been a draw. And if he'd rolled a 5 or a 6, he would have got 2 VP and he would have won. Like it literally again came down to a dice roll.
It's such a good element.
Yeah, and then he rolled a three or a four, can't remember which one, and then it just turned into a draw. So really good game, and I think the armies were really evenly balanced. I wasn't playing with a Primarch in that mission, and he was. But Vulcan was just fucking nails. Like I could not kill him for love nor money. I tried everything I possibly could, but that he's so tough, and that three up save is just
Yeah, he's a
absolutely
hefty boy.
absolutely okay. Do you want to talk about some of your standout games as well? So maybe a couple of your
Uh,
games that stood out.
yeah, I can do same thing. The Warp Bridge. I played Chris Brown's Stone Gauntlet Imperial Fist list.
Oh, mama.
Yeah, and as soon as you hear Stone Gauntlet and Fafnir ran,
Yeah.
you're just a bit like,
Yeah.
But it happened to turn into a really good game. I think I only won that game. Did I win or draw? Can't remember. It was either a win or a draw because I know I played 4 Imperial Fists in a
Yeah.
row and
Yeah,
I didn't
right.
lose to
That
any
is a
of them.
lot.
So I'll
That
take
is a lot. I
that.
think it would have thrown a tantrum by the time I got to my third Imperial Fist.
When I got matched up with the last Imperial Fist player, I had to walk around and say, "Are you doing this? Is this on purpose? Do you not like me?" But yeah, we did the Warp Bridge. We did a nice gentleman's agreement. I said I'm gonna stick my is it the Bavarian
Yeah,
down the
yeah.
console.
Yeah.
He stuck his Catalan down, and
Okay,
we
yeah.
said, "Well, we'll run past each other. We'll both get the D3. But if you beat me up in game, I may charge you."
Uh,
Just in case, I had to put it out there. But I
I like
shook on
that.
it.
That's
We
good.
did that.
Did you end up running past each other?
Yeah, we ended up running past each other. We both
Oh,
rolled as
nice.
D3. I think we got
Oh,
like three each for it, so
oh, fair play.
it was even. But I think that game was so good because I got to see the which one is it? The 4+ reroll, but
Yeah,
it's then
yeah,
got the apothecary with it. So you're
yeah.
talking the feel no pain, sat on an objective.
Just can't go through
I
them.
well, luckily, he held the line
Did he
and
fail it?
he failed his hold the line.
Oh,
But
yes.
the way he'd positioned, he'd got out of a land raider next to some
Uh,
terrain. He
okay.
could only fall back like 3 inches.
And
My
then
unit still touched them, took them off.
oh, savage. Oh, I love that. That's good. That teaches the Imperial Fist, doesn't it?
Oh
Fucking hell.
yeah, it was. I feels bad for him, but satisfying knowing
Yeah.
that you can do that stunt
It
gauntlet.
can, yeah. It's so that rerollable in Bun combined with the feel no pain can just become so obnoxious, can't it? It's just like, I feel got, but I've
Yeah,
put so much into this unit and they're still alive on like full strength.
yeah. Was luckily because I'm not, I'd say, a nasty world eaters player. So I'm just not rinsed with phalanx blades. I'll chuck in like I've got the murderous strike axes.
Yeah.
So going up
Oh,
against units like
perfect.
that,
Oh,
I'm
that's
not too
great.
fussed.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
so
That's
I'm
ideal.
slowly chipping away, still getting the wins.
Yeah.
That was another game where I got to taste what 10 last cannons do to a brass scorpion.
Gone very quickly, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think I just pick it up first turn. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So but it's a brilliant game. And I think the other game I'll have to highlight is obviously my first game against the overall winner, Chris, the
Yes.
mech player.
Yeah.
Beautiful painted army, and he understands the rules of your army and his own army so
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And he puts all those tools together just to,
Destroy you.
it's like first night in prison. And you go into your cell, and there's just this one dude just stroking his belly button, going, "Come in, boy." That's what it felt like playing him.
There you go. There's a statement. There you go, Chris. Now you know. Yeah, fair play. Yeah, he's a really accomplished player. Beautiful army, but yeah, he takes no prisoners, does he? In terms of his list. Cool. Right, let's have a look at what is next. I'm hoping John is there in the background. There we go. Perfect. So, the doubles game. Now, it was really interesting, the doubles game. So only 4 people played the doubles, and it was right at it was the last game of the
It was
day.
so this was open for this. So what it was the overall winners for the objectives.
Yeah.
So I think at this point traitors did.
Yeah.
So does it we nominate 2 traitor players to pick 2 loyalists?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I think there is in principle, this was a pretty cool idea, very cinematic. I think when the rubber hit the road, I think that it didn't quite work as well as perhaps we were expecting it to. So I think number one for the last game, you have 6K versus 6K, it's going to take half a day to do well. Like we had got to turn like the end of turn two, and we were like, me and Brian were just like, we're going to call this because yeah, number one is going on for hours, and number two, we could do another 2 turns, and it's going to take forever. Um, the other thing is that this was another random roll, so it was really unfortunate because there were 10 points for the traitor or loyalist, depending on who won this one. But me and Brian, and if you don't follow Brian already, he's barely tabletop. Brian really is a top bloke. He's from Canada, another Canadian. Like all the Canadians are so nice; they just really fit into a stereotype. But basically, like there were
such
rough
nice blokes.
yeah, it's really nice. Yeah. There were roughly 3 objectives on our side, roughly 3 objectives on their side. You had to, if you went first, you had to hold the objective until the end of your turn. So, especially with those objectives where you were just out in the open, you could just get blasted off. But also, 2 of mine and Brian's objectives went. So, on the first 2. So, basically, I think that we were just fighting an uphill battle from the moment that our first objective disappeared. And actually, I don't think it's a good idea in that kind of situation to go first. I think it's probably best to go second. But I think from what I recall, they wanted us to go first. That might be wrong, but yeah. So, but I think when the rubber met the road, I think that it was you had such a distance to cross that there were very few kind of combats until later in the game. The other thing I would say about this, and the only other feedback I'd give, is that the deciding who we were playing was just massively chaotic. Like basically DC had put in the WhatsApp group, traitors, you need to choose. You've got 10 minutes to decide. Well, that sends the people who've seen it into a frenzy. But of course, loads of people are at lunch, so they've not seen the messages.
Yeah, I missed all these messages. I
Yeah,
was doing the 2-for-1 cocktails, and then I looked at
yeah,
my phone and like, oh no.
yeah. It's just, and then by that point, the time is up. So I think that as a team, I think we probably would appreciate a bit of time to say, at the start of the game, kind of go, who do you want to select, or even if they'd known that this was an opportunity or possibility in the morning. But basically, I think that because me and Brian were the only 2 people that had seen the messages, we were just like, well, it might as well be us because we've only seen it. And then more confusion ensued because the way that the messages were written suggested that we could only play the top 3 players on the loyalist side. So it was like Phil, Chris, or Joe. And by that point, they had just been taking fucking names all throughout the event. Like they had not lost anyone. And I had just played Joe, literally a game just before that. So I was a bit like, well, I'd prefer to play someone else because I'd like to meet and greet other people.
Yeah.
So the way that they did it, it looked like it was like Chris and Phil were like the only players that we could choose. And actually, in reality, I think that we probably may have chosen them just to save the rest of the traitors from playing them, because from what I heard, all the traitors had pretty good games after that. But yeah, it was pretty rough. Like as I said,
I think the only recommendation. Oh, sorry, Net did jump a bit there. So I said the only recommendation, what I'd like to see with this final game, it should be an award for like the wooden spoon players. I'd love to see a doubles. The 0 and 4s just, bouncing off each other.
Yeah,
It would have been such a good watch.
I really like the idea of that. I think that the idea is good, but I think just the execution, I just think that it probably needs to be tinkered with. I think it is tough as well because I think that Brian had played both of them previously, and I think he'd lost both games against them. And I think that it was just we just got another pasting basically. Like no matter, like Phil's list is just really obnoxious because it's Sagi Mazan. Like Phil can be like, oh, what me gov, not my list, but the list is just horrendous. And as he said, like it's mech. Like mech is just tough, and Chris knows the list really well, and he doesn't take any any prisoners. So yeah, it was a rough game. And yeah, the less said about it, the better, really. But yeah, but that's the doubles one. But definitely, I think team give the side more time to decide next time. Give them like a couple of hours to get it sorted, and then
Yeah, I like what they do. I think so. Last in October, what they did for the final game is that they didn't let any news slip, and they said everyone write 1,000 points list. And we went what took us 1,000 point list to a different room to see this apocalypse board set up,
yeah.
and it was amazing. It was so much fun.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So they tried with the doubles to do something different, but maybe go back
Yeah,
to
I
the
think that's what they're
apocalypse next.
new missions and new things.
Cool. Right, let's have a look at what is next then, John, please.
Painting.
So we're actually drawing to the end now. This is kind of like getting close to it now. So awards. So this is some of the perhaps the more controversial conversations. But as we said, there were a ton of painting awards. Now I basically lost track of who won what and who got what. But essentially, the painting awards were split into two. One's done by the judges, and then one's done by the kind of like the attendees. So there was like a best painted, the peers, peer voted ones. The judges. So there were awards for a best unit, best character, and best vehicle, and basically the judges chose the top 5 and then chose the top 1. So the top 5 got pins, and then the top 1 got a glass trophy. There were top 5, I guess like SN awards / judges kind of awards, and these were like the SN awards, weren't they? So you can see and there were 5 of those. And this could be for a whole host of things. So it wasn't just down to actually painting. It could be like the hobby, the painting, the theme, how people behaved in a game, whether they were helping it. Like it was just a general award for just you and your army. And that went to the 5 people there. So you've got myself, you got Ash, you got Phil, you got Manel, and you got Timu. So those guys got those awards. So that was really nice. You got a little kind of like a round glass trophy, which was really nice.
And you don't have to apply for next year on those SN awards as well.
Yeah, that was huge. Yeah, you just you just get a free pass in, so that was great. And also, I think that yours, particularly Ash, was great because I think that it was an acknowledgement because Pardo had kind of made the point and said this person has made and more progress than anybody out of all you guys. Like. And that one went to you, Ash, and I think that it was a recognition of progress. I think was.
How did you win one for?
Did I win one?
Yeah. What did you win one for?
Just being a bloody great guy, mate. Bloody great guy.
He didn't know you at all, is he?
Yeah, exactly. Then there was a top player voted army, I think, because I started losing track at this point because there were so many. And I think that one went to Timu. And you can see him with his big box of Fnatic. Am I wrong about this?
Through the WhatsApp group, because we're all in a WhatsApp channel. Pardo dropped the link for the voting, gold, silver, and bronze. Was it?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So he got that one, and then, but I think a special mention to Manel. He got like 3 awards at this thing, but he's such a nice guy, and with a fucking amazing army. Like the army was insane. Definitely check his work out. But yeah, special mention to him. But he won a number of kind of like painting awards. But I did like that there was painting awards that were done by the team, and then painting awards that were done by kind of by the peers. I thought that worked really, really well. Let's have a look what's next.
Spreadsheets.
Right. So this was the most baller fucking move any event organizer has ever fucking made in the history of Horus Heresy events. So
one that I would, as an event organizer, would not be brave enough to make at all. I don't want anyone seeing my working out.
This was fucking baller. So this is the overall scoring, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time on this because I think this links back to what we were saying about tournaments, and perhaps we can have a wider discussion. It's great that you're back on this, John, because I think that it'd be good to get your thoughts from somebody from the outside. So, as I said at the start, it is a narrative event, and me and Ash have gone through about how narrative event. You've got loads of stuff going on. You've got cosplayers on videos coming up, etc., right? So it is a narrative event. However, there is also a tournament element to it, which is that there is a first player, second player, and third player in terms of the points that they get over the course of the event. Now, you get, as I said, for a win, 2 points, for a draw, 1 point, and for a loss, 0 points. So if you want to be at the top of the leaderboard, you do have to win missions. You can't just do it on best player, and you can't just do it on best painted. You have to win missions. Like, you don't have to win every mission, but you do have to win missions. All right. So that's where the tournament comes in. And I think it's interesting because John has definitely converted me over time to being like, it's a narrative event, Rob. Why is there a first player? Like, why are you doing that? And I've definitely changed my view on that since kind of like doing Heresy Hammer with John. But the Essen guys, they do it. Okay. Now, it is a triangle. Basically, they combine the scores that you get for your games, for the hobby, and for sporting. Now, the hobby's a little bit complicated because basically you get 3 points if you're in the top 3. So you can see the best army votes there. And that went to Chris, it went to Manel, and it went to Timu. And because they got the most amount of points, they got 3, 3, and 3. So it wasn't 3, 2, 1. It was just 3, 3, and 3. So a little bit complicated, but that's how they weighted it. And then Pardo also showed us the favorite player votes as well. So controversially, showed us the favorite player votes. And you could see there. Now, there's 2 things that I want to draw out of this. So if you notice right at the top, Chris, Manel, and Phil came top, and they got first, second, third. But Chris, you can see there with he's the no retreat champion. So he came first because he got 3 points for his painting. And then he got
10 points for gaming.
10 points for gaming. And then Manel got 6 points. So he lost 2 of his games, but he got 2 points for player's player, so best sporting, and then 3 points for painting. So that took him to 11. And then Phil got 10, and then 0 and 0. And what was really, well, John, I mean, what are the conclusions that you would draw out from that?
It's very difficult as a man sitting here looking at his array of best sporting trophies with his Iron Warriors army that normally wins most of the games, and thinking, I don't understand why you can't just be good and a cool guy. But clearly it is possible. But it's I think it's a toughie, right? Because what we don't want to say is, if you wreck face, then people think you're a twat, because that's really not true. Like, especially Chris. Like, Chris is a man who comes to all of our events, and he always performs really, really well, and he's absolutely lovely. So I think it's it kind of it's a real toughie. Like, for me, like, I'm not so, like, I don't want to not win. Like, I like winning games.
Yeah.
But like, I like winning games in the right way.
Yeah.
And I would much rather win a game by a victory point in the 4th turn than I would by tabling my opponent in the 2nd.
Yeah.
But I think that's me. And I think, if you are of an opinion where I am just like, I just want to prove my generalship at the expense of everything else, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But I think maybe, like, if you are smashing all your opponents and like none of your 5 opponents have said that they've had a great time against you, maybe consider. It's really tough.
It's super. I don't
want to appear preachy.
No.
It's not my place.
But what you're saying,
it is harder at an event like this, though, as well, when you've got such a good group of people. It's hard.
Yeah.
So
I think the only thing I would add to that, John, so it is difficult. But I think that what happened was, when Pardo put these on the WhatsApp group, you could start to see some of the guys basically go into meltdown. Because, and even if they don't admit they were going into meltdown, you could get the general sense, because lots of them were like, oh, why, did you think, Phil said, oh, did you think my list was too oppressive or whatever? And nobody answered. I don't think anybody fed back to him.
I mean, he was playing Sagamazan, right?
He knew.
I mean, you just know going
Phil
to
knew what he was doing.
Score against you.
Yeah.
Like, Sagamazan is a negative play experience before you even start playing the game.
Exactly.
So
So I think, and this actually really comes back to what we were saying. What are you going to? So
yeah,
I don't want to
100%.
embarrass anybody by putting these
No,
up.
no, no,
But what
not
I
at all.
am saying is that if you go and do this event, you need your eyes open, which is that unless they change the scoring in some way, and we'll talk about how they could change the scoring, is that there are going to be some people who are hunted. Like, of course, nobody goes in to a game going, I want my opponent to have a bad experience. But you do need to say to yourself, what am I there for? Am I there just to have a good time, throw some dice? I could win, I could lose. Or am I there to become the no retreat champion? And I think that it's that constant tension of narrative versus some elements of tournament. And I think that but if this kind of and Pardo clearly shares this because it then makes people kind of to step back and go, actually, maybe I just need to tone things down a little bit. Because and if it makes people do that, I think that's only a good thing. It's a baller move by Pardo, but I think that
Yeah,
if you know, it actually should be the thing that we look for, you know, be that you can get 10 points and you can get a couple of best army. Now the other option, and this is I know Pardo will probably tinker with this. I think that this should be potentially the way they do it. So rather than adding all the scores together, you add your score that you got plus your painting, and then you multiply by best player.
that was how Warhammer World used to run Throne of Skulls.
Yes.
I don't know if they still do it, but that used to be the metric. It was like it was essentially best game was your multiplier.
Yeah. So because what that does is that you're then kind of saying, okay, well, you know, your champion, you want them to be representative of a whole.
Yeah.
Rather than two elements on the triangle. And that's the thing, because you can win with just two elements on the triangle. But you're saying that the no retreat champion has to be three elements. And actually, if you say let's take Phil. I don't want to keep on picking on Phil. Let's take
Why don't we take you as an example?
I don't no, I'm not a good example of this.
Okay.
So let's take Chris as an example, right? If you went 10 plus the 3, he's got the 13, and then you times it by the players, he's got 0. So in that scenario, he would then go to the bottom of the leaderboard. And I think that because the whole triangle, the whole metric is about saying, actually, the no retreat champion has to be representative of all three aspects of this. And I think that probably might be a way that they could square it. And I then did the calculation. So Manel would have come up on top, then it would be Max, followed by Timu, and then followed by Scott as well. So I thought
that works out really well. Does that? Obviously Max being so high up on the scores because he doesn't deserve it.
but the thing is, the thing is though that Max got 3 player votes, and which I think is. It is massive, right? Like that's a really big thing. 3 people that he played like loved the games that they played with him, and I suppose that it just comes down to what is it that you ultimately want to do, and actually it's less about SN. And I think this is a conversation that all EOs need to have across the world watching this about exactly what it is that you want the metrics to be. I don't think there's any wrong or right. I don't care who came really at the top or top 3. It doesn't matter to me at all. But I just think that it's good to always have a conversation, and I'm sure Pardo will tinker with these things and kind of go, how should we affect them? But I just think that it's always important to have your eyes open. That number 1, this is the scoring, but number 2, that this will be shown to all players once the event's over. And I didn't know this was coming, and I was like, "Fucking hell! This is a fucking."
Not only that, but you now showed it to all of our thousands of subscribers.
Yes. I was like, "Whoa!
Really
this is
dragging people's names through the dirt."
I know this is. I was like the most baller move, but I think the other thing is to say that with favorite player, it might not be that they had a terrible time against you just because you got 0. It's just that the other people they had a better time with. So
what if you had 5 great games? It's always hard to choose.
And that's the thing. Like it just becomes arbitrary, doesn't it? You just like, well, I'll just choose this one.
You should really start flipping this metric over and have like a dickhead, and like you should assume you're playing well, and then you should be like halving your points if you receive like a dickhead.
Yes, I like that. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that a lot. Cool, cool,
That's
cool.
what the metric should be.
Cool.
Okay.
Right, I think this is it. This is the end. So, would we recommend it, and what would I do differently? So, Ash, let's come to you first. So, would you recommend it, and what would you do differently?
Yeah, I'd massively recommend it. Just fire an application in, see what happens.
Yeah.
And what would I do differently? Maybe as you were saying, like when you arrived there within 5 minutes, you understood what it is.
Yeah.
I don't like saying read the events pack. You can just say read the events pack, which only 10% of people will do.
Yeah.
But I think a show like this, pushing that, it's more narrative, it's more of a social side thing with games alongside that.
Yeah.
I think that just needs to be advertised a bit more.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that like actually for the benefit of the event, right? Like it's not like
Oh yeah,
people...
it's not that's not negative.
No,
It's just
it's a real pro, isn't it?
yeah.
Absolutely cool.
Robert, what
I
would you
would
do
recommend
differently?
it, but
You'd score it differently, clearly.
I would, so I would probably score it slightly differently. But yeah, so I'd recommend it. But I would definitely say, as Ash said earlier, it should be a hobby goal for people. You shouldn't necessarily feel like you have to go back every year because it's expensive. Like I couldn't necessarily afford it every 6 months or every year or whatever. But I might what I would do differently if I was to go back again, I would definitely go with that mentality. This is a social thing, and I'm just playing some games, but I would definitely start incepting people and going, have you thought about no retreat? And trying to get a few mates to come along with me as well as a shared experience. Because I think as much as I made friends with people, and Ash is on the show, or whatever, I think I cut quite an isolated figure because I was new there. And
and you are also, famously aloof.
I am somewhat aloof, but I would agree with that actually.
Yeah.
Yes. So I cut kind of. I felt a bit of an isolated figure, but if I could incept a few people to come along, then I think that we could have like a shared experience, and it would probably, my friends meeting my new friends at SN, I think would be pretty cool. So yeah, definitely would recommend as a hobby goal. But if you got fucking loads of cash, just fucking go every year, I guess. I mean, it's no fucking, just go
Just
as
do
much as
it.
you want. Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Just do it. Okay.
Cool.
Well, we want to say obviously huge thanks to our friends at SM Battle Reports. If you don't know who they are, I mean, clearly you do, but there might be one of you that doesn't. Go and follow SM Battle Reports and subscribe to their YouTube channel. They do largely Heresy content now. It's mostly Heresy and older related now. So lots of bat reps. They've also got some exclusive stuff over on their SN Plus, which is their subscriber based network. So make sure you go and check that out too. Consider subscribing there. Also consider buying some things from Bits Monster, who have been long-term supporters of the show. So Bits Monster, they'll take a box, they'll split it down, they'll see the stuff they want, and they'll kick into the bin the stuff that they don't. So head over to Bits Monster, use the code HeresyHammer at checkout for 10% off all Horus Heresy items, and they offer free UK shipping over £25. Beowulf Miniatures Printing, just an unbelievable stash of stuff. If you need some chain axes, bosh, head over there. If you need, I don't know, a pistol, a disintegrator, for instance, you know where to go. If you need some close combat arms because there aren't any Mark III close combat arms available currently, then head on over, buy a power maul. Maybe don't. See what I care. But the guys at Beowulf have got a huge amount of prints and bits and bobs that you may need for all your customization and army building needs. This is our roll of honor. We'll put it in the data blast at the end because this is literally too big now to go through because no one has the energy to listen, let alone read it out. But essentially, these are our top tier Praetor patrons. We love all of our subscribers to our Patreon because they help me and Rob keep the lights on. But we specifically love these people because they are subscribed at the top tier and they are about to start receiving some very, very exclusive new merchandise that we have in the works.
It arrived 2 days ago and I haven't taken a photo, but it fucking looks amazing.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Ash is one of our top tier patrons,
Yeah, you might see his name if you squint hard enough. It's right down. Buried
Yeah, it's buried there somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you would like some more Heresy Hammer, then we have hundreds of hours of additional bits and pieces. Maybe not hundreds, over 100, maybe more, quite a lot, a fucking shit ton of additional content over in the Patreon. You can subscribe for just £3 a month. Head over to patreon.com/Heresy Hammer if you'd like to get hold of some cool swag, some exclusive bits and bobs, maybe win a big old gift voucher or a model painted by me or Rob. Then you can consider subscribing at one of the additional tiers. You can even now get a free 7-day trial. So if you head over there and check it out, you can subscribe for free for 7 days, and then we'll start taking your money after that. Because let's be honest, you're going to stay. Keep tagging your miniatures over and your whips and your painting over on Instagram with the hashtag Heresy Hammer. Rob and I getting the first correspondence special available.
Yeah,
So we're going to do a
seeing
special,
those emails dropping in.
special like news and review show. So we're going to do once a month. We're going to kind of answer some listener questions, talk through some lists, look through the kind of community work. So if you've got a question or a list to submit or something you want to ask, either drop us a message on Instagram or the best thing to do is email heresyhammer30k@gmail.com. If you got all the way through this video, want to give it a like, give it a thumbs up, give it a subscribe if you're not already subscribed, a comment and share amongst your friends. It costs nothing and it helps us out enormously. And one final time, if you would like to get a week's worth of constant listening or watching to additional Heresy content, then head over to the Patreon and subscribe for just £3 a month. It's much appreciated. Anything else to say before we head off into the night?
I don't think so. Just a big thank you to Ash for spending 2
huge
hours
thanks
talking
to Ash.
about Heresy. Yeah, you are most welcome on any future show that you want to come on, Ash. Just let us know. And we'll
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Audio. Okay. Well, it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from them, I'm sure.
Goodbye.
See you later.
We'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.